Hello and welcome to the live Cybersecurity Awareness Forum. Today, we're in session number 19, and we're going to be talking about educating employees about deepfake audio and video threats. I'm Scott Wright, the CEO of ClickArmor, security awareness specialist, gamification enthusiast. We've got a number of panelists here that some have been before, some are, maybe one of them is new. And we'll get their introductions shortly. But while we're about to start, I'd just love if everybody can type in the chat where you're coming in from geographically. And at any time during the session, if you have questions or comments, feel free to enter them in the chat as well. And especially if you have resources or things you'd like to share, links to interesting things. I think we're going to have some fun, maybe a little bit of interesting demonstrations in this one. So really looking forward to getting started. I'm going to, as you guys are entering where you're coming from, I'm going to just go around the table and ask for introductions from our panelists today. We'll start with Victor, who's new to the panel. I know Victor, but I don't think you've been on the panel before.
Yep, no, I haven't been. My name's Victor Beitner. I'm the CEO of Cybersecurity Canada. I guess the reason I'm on here is because I've done some graphics work in the past, in the 80s and 90s, basically creating fake images for marketing purposes. And they're all photorealistic, all taking pieces of photos and assembling them to make them into a real scene. And did that in the 90s, and then basically got out of that world, and now I'm in the cybersecurity compliance world.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for joining us, Victor. We look forward to hearing your stories. I think you'll have a few for us. I'll next ask Fleetus. You've been on before, but it's been a few sessions, I think, since I've seen you.
Well, welcome. Glad to be back again. I appreciate it. So I'm Fleetus Poston. I reside here in North Carolina. I'm a security operations manager by day, security evangelist in the evenings/weekends. So happy to join you guys and look forward to the discussion.
Excellent. Thanks, Fleetus. And Michelle.
Hi, I work in cybersecurity culture and awareness, and I also do quite a lot of work on online harm reduction advocacy. So that's kind of what I do by night. Like I also apologise for looking a little bit dishevelled because it's the evening here. So I just finished my workout before I then go back on, because we have a session later on the other side of the world with Australia. So we're going to be doing that later on, so I'm kind of in between work.
That's okay. We won't blame you for not having made a deep fake of yourself.
I should actually have done that. It did occur to me. Probably look better.
Anyway, and you're joining us from the UK, is that right?
Yeah, from London.
Excellent. Thank you. And Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Scott. I'm Ryan Healey-Ogden. I'm the Director of Business Development over here at ClickArmor. I'm also the Chief Communications Officer at the Cybersecurity Global Alliance. And by night, I just stay up and worry about cybersecurity and all the threats to the world, and then usually send, people like James messages, and we talk about paranoia. So that's, I think deepfakes is absolutely a perfect topic for all of us to be here on. So I'm excited.
That's great. Cool. And I gave you an introduction about myself. I've been doing security awareness training for 15 or 20 years, and created ClickArmor a few years ago as a new way of doing security awareness training. Aside from the standard learning management systems, we use a gamified platform. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in less than a minute worth of discussion, somewhere in between our different topic questions, just to pay some bills. But the session is brought to you by ClickArmor. So I just want to welcome everybody who's joined us now. We've got quite a few people who've joined the chat, and some I'm just going to highlight here. We've got people from Poland, I think I saw, Philadelphia, Waterloo, Ontario, Ottawa, and Ramara, Ontario. Welcome, folks, and North Carolina, as well as the UK and Toronto. So, and there are more joining as we speak. So that's great stuff. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is start a poll. And I'm going to, if I can find my poll stuff. There it is. Poll about deepfakes. Now, if you're live right now, you should be able to see it, and the panelists won't be able to answer it, but they can see the questions. So I'll just quickly go through them, and hopefully people will have a chance to enter their thoughts. It's not too challenging. First question is, has your organization's management ever discussed the threats from deepfake audio or videos? And that will be an interesting one to hear. Hear how timely the problem is. You know, maybe some of us at lower levels have discussed it, but maybe the executives aren't yet aware of it. Number two is, where do you think deep fakes should be discussed in a security awareness program? So if you're running a program with training courses, where would you expect deep fakes to be covered? Should it be in its own module, or should it be in a social engineering course or module? Or you may not know or have a strong opinion on it. And the third question is, what long-term impacts do you believe deepfakes will have on awareness risks? Primarily, we want to look at this from the angle of employees, as most of us on the call are security awareness managers trying to help employees understand things. But you could also look at it from an individual point of view, and I think there is a lot of crossover between the individuals and the employees. So I'm going to say we've got 11 of the 13 people have responded so far, so that's pretty good. I'm going to end the poll, assuming that everybody who wants to join. Oh, we got 12. That's great. Well, last one, you're just too slow. Want to keep things going. So I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So let's discuss briefly. So the response to the first question is, has your organization's management ever discussed threats from deepfakes? Most of them have said no. 8 or 67% said no, and 4 people or 33% said yes. So that's interesting. You can circle back on that in a minute and ask the panel what they think of these results. Number 2 is, where do you think deepfakes should be discussed in a security awareness program? 50% say within a social engineering course or module. 33% say within its own dedicated course or module, and the other are undecided. And then thirdly, what long-term impacts do you believe deepfakes will have on security awareness risks? We have the highest response was more advanced social engineering attacks, SMS, voicemail, etc. 92% of the people think that. This is a multiple answer one. You could say as many of the options as you want. The second highest was more general social trust issues. So we can talk about that too, I think, during the session. And more advanced phishing attacks. So virtually, the majority of the panel or of the attendees feel that all of these are significant, at least. So thanks very much for that, folks. I'll stop sharing right now, and then we'll ask the panel what they think of these sort of responses that we got. I'll go in. Usually I mix it up every time, but I'll try and keep it consistent this time, and we'll try and go the same order of people. So I'll start with Victor, then go to Michelle, then Fleetus, and then Ryan. So Victor, what are your thoughts on our quick poll? You can criticize the poll itself, by the way.
No. It's I can, but I won't. No, the awareness training. I think it's going to have. What stands out is the social impact, and we have been seeing this in the past, big time since 2016. With the U.S. election, with all the fake videos and fake photos that have hit the media, it has the potential. It has swayed the public, and people believe what they see, and people believe what they read. And I know people believe what they read because I used to write for 2 magazines about technology advancement and everything. I used to complain a lot about the failures, and if I said something, they believed it without a question. So I think the social impact is going to be the big changer for the world itself, for awareness. Yeah, I think that it's really there's a lot to learn about the course, about what's involved in it, because the technologies are evolving. New technologies coming out. Ryan just introduced to me Resemble,
Yeah.
another voice AI toolkit. I played with some others. Um, until you start paying for subscriptions, they don't really get you to sound right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I, it's,
Okay.
the fishing. Yeah, I think that's what I have to say so far.
Okay. Yeah. We'll dig deeper for sure into some of these things. So, Michelle.
Yeah, I agree with everything that was just said. I think it's certainly something that the organisations I work with do discuss. Although to be fair, we're fairly progressive in that sense. So I think it's possible and concerning that other organisations wouldn't be, but I do think it's something you should be discussing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the implications for the kind of training and awareness content that falls very much into my remit professionally. I have done quite a bit of work recently with misinformation generally. So kind of tying it together with, can you recognize the deep fake dog, for instance, at a very basic level, and all the rest of it, and then bringing it out, because I'm trying to make it a bit fun, because I don't think we want to make it scary. But it is very, very important to make really realistic content like that. And I think companies are going to be making, just like we're using ChatGPT, I think we're going to end up paying for these kind of subscriptions so we can make that kind of content to then put it into our training. Yeah. Say, look how easy it is. And certainly for people like us, even doing this, it would be very easy to get samples of our voices. I imagine most of us talk. I've done talks and all the rest of it, or you're around panels, you're around about.
Yes,
it's very easy. And so I think I think the second question, I think it could fall into anything. I think it could fall across a lot of different modules.
I guess that's true.
To weave it into a lot of things, because it will come in, voice call phishing, or general more targeted deepfake content, and then misinformation generally. But I think as a security sector, the last thing I'd add is I think we need to get a bit better at recognizing misinformation sometimes as well, because I do see quite influential people in security sharing things that perhaps are not necessarily verified, and then having to walk it back. And we do need to learn to walk the walk ourselves before we start trying to advise. I think it would be good to see people showing a bit more thought and reflection around what they share and being explicit about that.
Excellent. Thanks for that. Fleetus?
Yeah, so I'll come at it from the security operations point of view, and then the evangelistic side of just talking about it. So Michelle briefly talked about this and mentioned it, and this is something I just had a discussion with. We're using AI. Deepfakes is a form of artificial intelligence. So it's getting to the managing the human risk, which is another way of saying our security awareness of unless I can physically see you, I'm no longer going to trust what I hear. And the sad part about that is we're in a remote workforce. We're dealing with people across the globe right now. I may never meet some of you, but do business with you day in and day out. So from that implication, I'm going to have to more or less, what we've talked about in other calls, is determine more or less a safe word, or something that we know is like a one-time password. So I validate who they are when I call them by asking a question that only they would know, that we pre-shared, pre-talked about. And it's silly, but we make it into a game. Like you can say, hey, for Monday's call, we're going to say our favorite pizza topping. So when you say, like, I didn't tell you what the question was. I just said share a pizza topping. So if you don't answer with a pizza topping to our icebreaker, it's a deep fake, or it's someone else pretending to be you because camera's off. You can modify the voice. So you gamify the AI. You gamify this process by setting up, just like you would with your kids. Hey, if I send a stranger to pick you up, I'm going to tell them this one phrase. And then once you use that phrase, you never use that phrase again. People want to replay that phrase. So that's where I think about, from my side as a security operations point of view, is verify. Don't trust and verify anymore. It's like you got to verify every single time now. It's sad that we used to be trust but verify. Now it's don't trust you and then verify you, which is the least privilege, just-in-time privileging that we're moving to in today's society. So I think with this, it's going to be a great discussion. I think, like Michelle, it can fall anywhere depending on how you want to tackle this in your awareness training. It could be its own module. It's a social engineering aspect, but I also think you can play into it with the AI that we just talked about with Chat GPT creating things. You've got imaging out there that's being built, and they're getting better at building what I would call a camera reel. Like they can make all the dinosaurs look the same. They can make all the people look the same. So it looks realistic of this isn't one simple clip. This is a series of videos that Fleetus did over a month because they've been able to series it to make it more realistic, more reliable, because now I can pull clips from previous calls and it looks like I've just validated myself because I was able to authenticate myself from a previous clip because I referenced that same clip over and over again. So we'll dive into that, but that's the discussions I've had in reading those polls. That's what I wanted to open with. So
excellent. Ryan.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think it's all been covered. You know, where I think with the organization not talking about it, that's not surprising. I mean, that's going to be, you know, kind of the common lay of the land as we go through a lot of these important topics. You know, where where should they be discussed? I think they should just be in their own individual module. I think the way that AI and deepfakes, you know, go hand in hand, to Fleetus's point, I think there needs to be attention put just on those, because there are so many different avenues of attack within a deepfake, and there's so many other ramifications from that as well that I think employers, you know, and employees need to be aware of. And then what are some of the long-term impacts? I agree. You know, more advanced phishing attacks. We've seen that already with ChatGPT. We're going to see that with, you know, with deepfake voice and video. The social engineering attacks, that's already happening. People are getting phone calls all the time from suspected loved ones asking for help, money, you know, etc. So that one's going to, you know, spill into the workplace if it hasn't already. The social trust issues, I also, you know, want to add brand reputation on there. I think this is another, you know, opportunity where I think a lot of organizations, their entire brand could be smeared by, you know, a deepfake video of a CEO, you know, being posted to Twitter saying, you know, I am no longer confident in my company's direction, and the stock can take a dive in a quick second, and thousands of people could be unemployed. You know, that is quickly how bad this problem, you know, could be. And so I think there's a lot of different things to kind of consider in how we look at this and how we move forward.
That actually happened recently with Musk, when he claimed he didn't make a posting about something, and then
yeah, but knowing Elon Musk, he probably did fully do that posting and is just trying to find a way to back out of it. But
well, I think that's true. It could be that the reverse happens, right? Somebody actually does commit an offense, and then they use a deep fake to try and prove that they didn't.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, it could become a deepfake, could become an alibi. I mean, there's so many different things that we might be able to consider in this. But I really like Michelle's point of view that we can, again, let's look at this from, okay, this is a giant threat, but how do we turn this threat around and utilize it for the best, right? And then, like, in my quick, like, few minutes of looking at this kind of voice, you know, app, it's like I could then all of a sudden envision myself presenting training videos and all kinds of content, and actually being able to do speeches where I'm not even there or able to be there, but I can still prep everything and present it right across. I mean, the reach, you know, for you know, organizations could be greatly increased as well, but obviously with that comes the threat side. So I'll leave it there for now.
Yeah, cool. Well, let's move things along just a little bit so we can dig into maybe different angles. One of the things that I did obviously was trying to do a bit of research to see what are the most prevalent tools out there right now that are being used, and how have they been used in ways that you know, could be demonstrations for employees, as we were talking about. You know, it's a great idea, I think, to be able to show people, look how easy this is. And I think, you know, there are examples here. Deep Face Lab is one that I see most often. Face Swap, Deepfake Studio, and then there's Learbird, I guess you call it, which is for doing deepfake audio. And even, you know, After Effects from Adobe has been pretty you know, simple, but or basic, but is actually used for these kinds of things. I was going to actually go to my browser and just pick a couple of examples and see if I can share this with sound. This one's the one with the Queen, and I'm sure Michelle's seen this, but maybe someone else haven't.
It's my house. Do you mind? I live there.
For nearly 70 years, I have kept a tradition of speaking to you at Christmas. But on the BBC, I haven't always been able to speak plainly and from the heart. So I'm grateful to Channel 4 for giving me the opportunity to say whatever I like without anyone putting words in my mouth.
A little bit ironic.
If there is a theme to my message today, it is trust. Trust in what is genuine and what is not. 2020 has been a challenging year for us all. A year when most of you, thanks to toilet roll shortages, have finally understood how it feels to have a predicament on the throne. One thing that has sustained many of us is our families, which is why I was so saddened by the departure of Harry and Meghan. There are few things more hurtful than someone telling you they prefer the company of Canadians.
All right, I think we've heard enough of this. It's just that at the end it sort of reveals how it's been done.
And all at Channel 4. I trust you will have the very merriest of Merry Christmases.
So that was an interesting one. I think it's interesting at the end how they kind of reveal the training video that was used for it.
Well, they probably had to, otherwise
We're entering an era in which our enemies can make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time, even if they would never say those things. So, for instance, they could have me say things like, Killmonger was right. Or Ben Carson is in the sunken place. Or, how about this? Simply, President Trump is a total and complete dipshit. Now, you see, I would never say these things, at least not in a public address, but someone else would. Someone like Jordan Peele. This is a dangerous time.
So this is cool. It shows exactly the synchronization.
Moving forward, we need to be more vigilant with what
training
we trust from the internet. That's a time when we need to rely on trusted.
I have one more to show, and then we can get comments on it. This was actually recent, a day or two ago in the U.S., where there was a committee to start talking about AI and ChatGPT.
For some introductory remarks. Too often, we have seen what happens when technology outpaces regulation. The unbridled exploitation of personal data, the proliferation of disinformation, and the deepening of societal inequalities. We have seen how algorithmic biases can perpetuate discrimination and prejudice, and how the lack of transparency can undermine public trust. This is not the future we want. If you were listening from home, you might have thought that voice was mine and the words from me, but in fact, that voice was not mine. The words were not mine. And the audio was an AI voice cloning software trained on my floor speeches. The remarks were written by ChatGPT when it was asked how I would open this hearing.
So that's pretty interesting. Anybody want to jump in with comments about what?
Yeah, one thing I noticed, the Jordan Peele one's a few years old, so obviously you can kind of see the technology has like drastically improved. But I think the aspect of the deep fake, the person who's doing the deep fake, the more they can convince the camera at the start that they are that person, because Jordan Peele does a fantastic Obama impersonation, I think the more convincing this can be. And so that kind of goes down the road of, it's almost like we have actors that are becoming people. And I think that kind of becomes more of the scariest threat there, where with technology and then that person who has the ability to have those cues and the speech just lined up just like that person, I think that's where we have kind of even more of a dangerous kind of slide. So that's all I wanted to highlight from that.
Look at Mission Impossible with the mask and his voice changer on his throat, and he becomes other people. It's coming. This stuff is coming.
And just to add to that too, we've had CGI for a while. We've had computer-based generations happening all the time with voiceovers. We have voice actors. So this just allows the common user person to be able to do what Hollywood has done for decades.
And now it'll be in real time. That's the scary thing, right? Rather than spending millions of dollars to try and do it in months and stuff to build it, it's just a matter of, well, let's spin up an app.
The other thing too there, and what I've studied from the videos that I've watched and kind of how I opened is this the normal verbiage you would say? So it's trained to my voice, but do I use these words? Is this the right vernacular for me? Do I use, as I said, I'm in North Carolina. Is there a Southern drawl? Do I linger on my words? Do I use certain vocabulary that my adversary in this case would not use because they haven't studied my word choice? They've just studied my mannerisms. They've just studied my pausing. Maybe not.
Michelle?
Yeah, I think, again, agree with it all. I think the biggest challenge as well is moving from photos, identifying photo images, deepfakes is relatively easy. But when it's moving, as soon as it's moving, there's too many other things going on. It's much more, it's like that experiment they do where they have the clown running on behind and nobody sees it because everybody's focusing on the other things. It's the same point. And I think the advice that we give, the most successful advice I ever give is just take time. Just, take your time to check things and carve out time in your day. But that doesn't really scale to the amount, the input that's coming, that's already here, but is going to be coming. And I think whether that's at work or in people's personal lives, I think they're going to be overrun with faked images. And so telling somebody to take your time to reflect is actually relatively challenging when that could be every single image you see. So I don't actually know how to scale that.
You made a comment about images being easy to...
Not easy, sometimes relatively easy. There are certain things you can look at depending.
Because part of some of the work that I've done in the past is creating fake images, and it was for marketing purposes. And unless you actually take the files and separate them into the colors, then you could see the manual manipulation of it. It took hours to create. But if you look at it face value, and when you printed it, it was what it is, right? But also today, with the images and how they're being created, you're seeing a lot of fake images happening in the news, in the newspapers, and the stills and everything. And sometimes they're blatantly easy to see, and sometimes they're so good that you really need the file itself to decipher if it's a fake or not. And that's going to be that's again a social issue for the future. But to create it today, it's like you snap a finger and you have what you want. And now with Chat GPT and some others, you tell it what you want and it'll create it. You don't have, just don't think about it. Just say, I want this to look this way, and there it is.
Excellent. I agree. I think what you said, Victor, the thing that came to mind for me was you've probably all seen the picture of the iceberg at water level, where you can see this beautiful, snowy iceberg on top, and then the huge, massive ice under the water, which clearly could never have been a picture that anyone took, but it was created so realistically. All right. I'm going to just go back to our little bit of a guide deck. So I just wanted to sort of cover a few things. Deep fakes aren't all bad. Of course, there's good reasons for creating them. For audio, there's helping people who've lost their voices, and for training, using simulations, they're realistic, will help people sort of face the risks before they have to face them in the real world. So those are some of the good reasons if people are asking, why the heck are we even doing this at all? But on the corporate side, think about the sort of more acute or targeted attacks that could use, as we've already heard, voicemails. from the boss, to do things like go buy gift cards. And then, on a bigger scale, more broad, we talked about general social trust. Maybe somebody declares war, or just having public personas starting a mass of response from their followers for things like crypto scams or worse. So those are some of the things I was thinking of that we could identify what are the potential impacts. Anybody thought about those?
So a little bit on that one, and this is where it struggles today. All of us have hit on this so far, is we readily have access to media in written form and video. And what do we trust? Do we trust the major broadcasters? Do we trust what we see where? And so to draw that back to the social aspect, how much propaganda do we let sink in before we make a decision? Because we may trust you, but how much do we have to see? Is it 10 seconds of a TikTok video? Is it a minute of a YouTube? Is it a 45-second CNN or whatever broadcast, BBC, before we say this is truth? So I think that's where this comes into play, is that I only see it on one media, written, voice, TV, etc. Did I see it multiple places? So that's the propaganda piece. How far is it spread before I saw it, so that I can, as I said, follow a breadcrumb and say, okay, 3 outlets have confirmed this, confirmed air quotes. It's been shared in 3 video clips on 4 different platforms. That's where I think the trust social that Victor spoke about, that Ryan talked about for brand, Michelle has mentioned. That's where I'm trying to teach my family now. I have 2 young kids. My wife and I try to figure out what we share, how we share that information, so that they can be educated when they see something, that they have that innocence to them to understand that can't be true at just face value. Like, you've got to figure out what is truth. And truth is going to be relative to some people and absolute to others. So helping them understand where absolutes versus relative truth come into play when it comes to AI. We'll just keep AI, even though we're talking about deep fakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned something about the spread of the multimedia, like multiple media outlets. We're being bombed by your son. Yeah. Now I lost it. So what has been happening lately with the truth in media, or lack of, is people will start to say something on Facebook and make it their truth, and then you'll have some of the big media organizations pick up on it because this person has had like 1 million views or 1 million likes, so it must be real, it must be vetted because 1 million people have looked at it, and then they spread it out, and then another newspaper or media concern will pick it up and say, well, if the New York Times is sharing it, then it must be true. But it all stems, and they found that it's originated in a Facebook post that someone just made up at the time. So we're seeing that. What I'm trying to teach my girls and everyone around me is that there's always 2 truths, right? There's the truth you see and the truth the other people see, and you got to see both sides. So you gotta realize that everyone sees things and it's their truth, and you have to decide what your truth is, because this is today. We don't have gray anymore, so we have to look at what one side is saying, the other side is saying. It's very polarized in the media today, so you'll see more of these fake videos and fake media in the social side on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And which one do you believe? And they could both be fake, right? But one looks more better.
Which one's least fake?
Least fake, yes.
Which one's the least deep fake? I mean, one comment I have, it's, when we have, to your point, Victor, we have, news agencies, let's say CBC, BBC, CNN, they're not regulating their content as well as they could be. And then you look at TikTok, TikTok is basically become a powerful platform to promote deepfakes. There's the deepfake Tom Cruise account that, you know, can get millions of views for each
It's
video.
not real?
I'm sorry to say, Victor,
That's
Tom,
huge if
that
that's
is not.
true. That's huge if true. If that's not real.
No, right? And that, you know, so you've got
I'm
social media
heartbroken.
platforms allowing this to be proliferated as a common everyday thing. And so then now it's where do we look to trust, right? So, and unfortunately, many demographics trust TikTok. Many demographics trust what they see on Facebook. And that then will, you know, is going to cause security implications just left, right, and center. Because if the news and if these trusted brands are saying it's okay to impersonate people and we're not going to take it down, in fact, we're going to promote it, then how are we going to get ahead of this as an industry?
And that's where security people have gone the wrong way as well. So just very quickly, because I think that's the thing that really annoys me about the debate recently around TikTok. And we've had all this stuff about, the data and all the rest of it. But to be honest with you, the data that one platform takes is no worse than the data that the other platform takes.
It's just who has it.
Because I mean, trust me, I've worked with education settings as well. And if the whole schools data sharing is actually worse than TikTok, but that's another discussion.
Yeah.
But the thing that security professionals should be absolutely talking about is the misinformation.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that, unfortunately, we have people who enjoy the fact that they can go on TikTok or Twitter or whatever other platform, Blue Sky now and all the rest of it, and do all these things and actually manipulate people. And some of our most prolific social engineers enjoy all the manipulation and everything else, for better or for worse. And that's the discussion we need to be having, but it needs critical thinking and nuance. And I don't see very much of that level of discussion within security, unfortunately.
So in my past, not too distant past, I was a member of the High Tech Crime Investigation Association. And part of our training is looking at the fakes, whether it's images or whatever. And I'm glad I'm not doing it anymore, because it's getting more difficult. The technology that you need to decipher what is real and what's not real is, it's getting more challenging for everyone. And we're being inundated with like the TikToks and everything else. And we have governments like our government who wants to start censoring TikTok, and the US government censoring TikTok and whatever. Where are they getting their righteous information from? Who says they must be getting it from Facebook? Oh, if Facebook says TikTok is bad, then maybe TikTok is bad because 10 million people or 100 billion people said TikTok is bad. So if, that many people say it's bad, then obviously it's bad, right?
Yeah.
Like, who's getting this information?
Seems like an obvious sort of issue that we should be able to raise to the authorities, but what they will come back with, having worked in some of those organizations, is sources and methods must be protected. So we can't really show you how we know this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Privacy.
So they have plausible deniability, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's tricky.
Yeah.
But it would be good to see more information. I mean, in the last couple of weeks, I get various kind of things, as I'm sure everybody else does in my kind of line of business. Things come across my desk like, oh my God, this is in the news, so we're going to talk about it. And it depends how reactive your organization is or whatever else. But what have we had? Juice jacking, the TikTok data sharing thing. And there was something else that just occurred to me I've forgotten about. But I would love it if and the juice jacking thing came up on a government website. And I was thinking, of all the things that we could be educating the public on, we are creating something out of nothing. It's like me saying to my kids, the woods are down there, there's a bogeyman in there, rather than, watch out for the very, very big freeway that's in front of you. Like which threat should I be talking about, and which is the biggest risk? Mm-hmm. And this drip feed as well, of kind of, especially with TikTok. I mean, I use TikTok, I love it, and all the rest of it, but I do see the fact that there's a very big drip feed of misinformation, whether it's just words and language, the kind of thing you see, or it's the more deep fakey type stuff, because we're talking about AI here. You do see it, and it's very hard to curate your feed. And once you start going through, because the TikTok algorithm is amazingly reactive, it will tune to you within seconds. So you're getting that
said-
misinformation into your IV.
I had a discussion with my team about juice jacking, and I can't believe it, but they think it's a serious threat. And I said, listen, I've done forensics, so I know what it is to plug in something into a phone and try and get information in it. Unless you have $100,000 worth of equipment to crack the BIOS or the system, you ain't getting nothing unless you open it up and say, oh yeah, I give you permission to see all my stuff. Then you have an issue. But this was a problem years back. Google has addressed it in Android. Apple has always been a challenge because you look at what happened with the version the Apple phone, the 5, where the FBI wanted Apple to give them the back doors, to all that stuff. They couldn't get it. And they had companies like Cellbrite that can break into phones and extract information. Fortunately, they only supply, governments or whatever, whether it's good or bad. They supply governments with the access to the technology, police services. So it's not easy. Yeah. It's not like go to the airport, plug in, and you've been juice jacked, right? And what are the odds?
Exactly. Like to just, we got 15 minutes left or so. I'd like to just bring it back a little bit for a minute about the business side. What do we see as the kinds of things deepfake media might be used for, specifically to attack businesses or to attack employees to get at businesses? Any thoughts on that side?
Yeah, I'll go at it first here. I think Ryan hit it spot on, is if they can get a video posted in a place that employees will see it, and it's a senior leadership or someone of any value, and they can get the mannerisms correct to say, hey, we can use whatever. It's coming into summer. We're going to a 4-10 schedule, and we would love for you to have every Friday off. All you have to do is go to this website and sign up. Most people are going to go sign up. Go sign up to have every Friday off.
Yeah.
But just remember, put in your password when you sign up.
Stop.
Don't forget.
Other stuff similar to
You're
that.
speaking
That's
it into
being honest,
existence.
right?
Oh my god!
And I
So
think
I
we're
always
gonna
say
see-
that is we did a phishing simulation many moons ago where we said we would give you half day Fridays for the first 1,000 employees who signed up.
Hell, I click that.
You would. The other deep
I
fake
wouldn't
I
really,
think
by
is
the way.
the
Don't
biggest,
think it.
and I've shared it on one of these calls before. You'll get me every single time if you post something about a lockdown at a place I know my kids are at.
Yeah.
I will every single time. If you can recon me enough to know that my kids are at this concert, at this theme park, at anywhere that I know that my family is at, my immediate family, I'm going to interact with you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use emotion at that point in time versus the intellect as a security practitioner. And I'm more than likely going to fall for your deep fake.
And that's the piece, is that emotional piece. And I think what's going to do, what's going to turn the corner on these scams, especially internally, corporations. Like the other day when Scott landed back from Japan, on the same day, I got a text message from Scott asking me to run out to the store to get some Apple gift cards. Of course, I decided to stretch that into about an 8-hour engagement with this scammer, just to make sure that their entire day was drained before I moved on. But I think we're going to see is the change in that is I'm going to get a video from Scott, right? I'm going to get a voice memo from Scott, right? Or a voicemail left, right? And then those are going to be the harder things to kind of decipher, and especially if they then start to hit those emotional cues that Fleet has pointed out.
Yeah.
In Toronto, I just heard there's the grandparent scam has been upgraded to now voice deepfakes, right? So boom, grandmother answers, oh my God, it's my grandson. He needs money transferred because he's in jail. Boom, $2,000 gone. Moving on to the next one, right? And that is happening, today.
It's really, I think, in my view, on the employee side, because the businesses themselves probably have more resources that are valuable to the attacker. The attackers are going to spend more. They're going to invest more, right, in open source intelligence. We've had sessions on that. We may do more, but basically gathering information to target, and they're going to spend more than people believe anybody would spend in order to set up this kind of a scam. So I think when it comes to educating of employees or educating employees, we have to let them know that these tools not only exist, but there are attackers who will invest a lot to get at whatever the organization has, whether it's its own assets or its access to supply chains and things like that. So it's sort of I think it's a chain of things that we have to teach people. It's these are the reasons why attackers are going to target you. There's a lot of value in the things that you have access to, and therefore you need to be careful about how much what plausibility you place. You should actually be a little more wary, as Fleetus said, have some consciousness of the context. So that was just what I wanted to bring up and start looking at how we should be educating employees on these things.
Yeah. Also,
So, like Michelle can probably to this a little bit. Is we treat this kind of like you would treat a BEC. Like, how do you handle business email compromise? How do you handle odd? Like, this is how you would teach this. How do you verify? What is the internal procedure to verify the information that you just read, heard, or seen? Like for an ACH change, so account change. What is the internal process to change the account number? Do you have a process? Is the process followed? Same thing with the deep fake. You still got to follow that process. If I want you to buy a gift card, my CFO never asked me to buy a gift card. Okay, check, done.
Yeah.
I may be asked to wire money from time to time. That is my role. But what is the process to verify a wire transfer? There's where you go. Same with the voicemail. Like Ryan just said, Scott called me. Does Scott ever leave a voicemail with this information? Has this ever happened from Scott? Yeah. I'm going to call Scott, and I'm going to call Scott on the number that I know Scott owns. Yeah. Not the number that called me, not the number that texted me, the number I have for Scott. So just like we did with email, you don't call the number that's in the email. You call the number that you have documented in your vendor's portfolio, on the business card you actually have from the account rep. So it's literally replaying what we do for phishing.
Yeah.
What we do for anything else.
That's why
playbooks.
I was going to say that's why attackers are targeting new employees first, right? Because before they've even had a chance to have that training or before it's really sunk in through the culture.
So Jim Guckin,
yeah.
Guckin, he wrote about something about a fake person apply. I was listening to a podcast where the real person was a friend of the wife of the company, and it was a big important job, so it was a good referral, right? It was a fake interview on Zoom, a fake video. The person pretended to be this person with a fake voice, the whole bit, passed like he mentions in flying colors, that he got the job on the spot. And then when it came time, because it was remote, it was the beginning of COVID, everyone was starting to do that. The person lasted 2 weeks, got his first paycheck, which was probably substantial, and ghosted the company. And then when they tried to find the original person, they found out he never applied. He has a full-time job. He's doing his own thing. So this seems to be happening also as a result of having this technology being able to be deployed in these in Zoom sessions when they do the interviews.
Yeah. Great. So just before we get to our last question, where we can kind of wrap up, just wanted to, if possible, talk for a moment about ClickArmor, who sponsors this series of panel discussions. It's a gamified or highly interactive platform for security awareness training, and can be used to teach employees about social engineering scenarios. We've got gift card scams, we've got invoice scams, things like that. And very soon we'll have deepfake scams, I'm pretty sure, right, Ryan? So anyway, if you'd like to learn more about how you can improve your security awareness, and actually one way that we see a lot of customers doing this is on the remediation side. You can only do so many live phishing simulations and putting people through the same training before you realize something's not really working. And what the problem is that people need a different method for learning and practicing spotting this stuff. So that's our little pitch from ClickArmor, and really glad you could join us today. One last question is really, what are the long-term effects of deepfake attacks? We talked briefly, I think, in the poll and later on about the fact that social trust issues are going to come up, and Fleetus, put it well, saying, I'm not going to trust anybody unless I see them in person. Is that really what it's going to come to? How are we going to avoid that?
Again, I alluded in my intro and throughout, like, you have to put other mechanisms in place. If I'm never going to meet you, we do the secure handshake I talked about. Like, I've given you my public key. Like, we go back to cryptography. I've given you my key. Only I can validate it with my private. So, like, the repudiation here, non-repudiability comes back into play here. And we play that minute. I hate that we have to go there, but like, that's another way of doing business. Like, you learn how to do email signatures again, like digital signature. Like, how do I validate you sent me the email?
Yeah.
I validate you sent me a voicemail. You sent me a video. That's what it comes down to, is how do we do that digital signature with voice?
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept.
It's kind of almost like MFA in real life. And I mean, I could already see, meeting hosts being able to, generate codes and send them securely to people. And those codes have to be sent back, upon joining, in real life. I expect you to say this to me, right? There's different ways we could try and do this, but it's an interesting thought.
And we can also improve how we communicate within business anyway. I think we've got kind of an oversharing society, but we've also got a very distant society where we are just in the habit of just getting a call from somebody and being some companies do have that kind of culture where the gift card type scam would work, because it's very high pressure. Everybody's yelling at everybody and it's very high stress. But maybe the best way to improve security is to actually work on your culture, kind of in your comms, and make sure that people do spend that time with each other, so that they aren't just expected to call up and just have that kind of very kind of confidential discussion or transfer things and transfer money. So there's that piece as well, which is hard.
Yeah, there's a question in the chat from Chinedu, I think it is, saying, could threat actors deepfake video calls? And I might have mentioned this last time Michelle was on the session, but there's a British TV show that I love called The Capture, which is actually talking about how real-time deepfakes are potentially done by the police or people trying to thwart the police. So it's certainly envisioned in the media, but I don't know if it's completely there yet, but it probably will be very soon.
Definitely.
All right. I just want to ask people if they might be able to in the chat, what has been the most valuable insight or piece of information that you can take away from this session today? Was it something about the methods being used by deepfakes, methods that might be used for education, maybe some of the tips that Fleetus and others have given, and any insights on the long-term effects? So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat about what you thought was best about this session. And we have set up the next session already. We've chosen a theme. It's for Wednesday, May 31st, and we're going to talk about online tracking threats and their impacts on organizations. So that'll be a fun discussion, and this QR code will get you there to sign up. It's not a phishing attack. It's just some way for you to more quickly get there than trying to write down the URL. So yeah.
Can I make a suggestion for a future?
Yeah.
More of an educational type thing where we can actually get some tech involved and show how easy it is actually to create a fake, so people can actually see it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. I mean, that's what we could definitely do that in real time in any of these. It's unfortunately how easy it is with just an app or a click of a button these days.
But a lot of people won't believe it.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah.
We know.
So we know, and we'll get that set up. So yeah, join us next time in 2 weeks for a discussion on online tracking and impacts on businesses, and how we can work with security awareness programs to improve people's knowledge of that to reduce the risks. So I want to thank Michelle, Fleetus, Victor, Ryan, and everybody in the chat who have participated, and hope you got something out of it. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.